You're listening to the Downshift podcast, where four mates from Melbourne take you trackside for all the action in Formula One, breaking down the races, the drama, and everything in between, all with a little banter and a lot of passion. If you love motorsport and cars, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you're always on the grid with us. And if you want to support the team, leave us a 5-star review so we know how we are doing and what you want to hear more of. So let's get into another action-packed episode. It's lights out, drop the clutch, and let's get racing. Hello and welcome to the Downshift, where four mates from Australia talk about the Formula One. Joining you is Huppy, Lachy, Schwags and myself, KT, as we're doing the review of the Miami Grand Prix, which has just had an announcement of a 10-year contract extension, taking it out to 2041. And we saw a race where McLaren continues to display its dominance. Kimi is showing us how truly fast he is. Ferrari continues to be Ferrari. And Williams is also continuing to demonstrate how solid they are, forming a foundation. We saw Oscar Piastri be the first McLaren driver to win 3 consecutive races since Mika Häkkinen in 97-98.
Go Oscar.
And yes, and he finished that off with the gritty dance at the end. So we may as well start from the end. Lachy, you didn't think too much of the gritty.
Well, I think he tried. I actually think he was a bit stiff, like in terms of he got out of that car and could barely move, and then he tried to do that. And yeah, look, it didn't quite look like the other ones I've seen versions of that, but look, at least he gave it a shot, and it was entertaining for the press pack that was there and all the rest of his teammates. So that was fine.
That's what happens when you lose a bet.
Not his finest hour. I think he can do better for the next one.
Stick to race driving. He did a good job at that. We don't need to watch the gritty, but yeah, he did a good job on the track.
Yeah, very solid. I mean, you look at that through the whole weekend. Obviously, it's a sprint weekend where, again, sprint races, it sort of throws everything into a disarray. Having to only have one practice, then going straight into qualifying and, a 100K race before then qualifying for the race and then going to Parc Fermé. So we saw Lando take the win for the sprint, followed by Oscar, and then we had Lewis behind them, and then obviously a bit of a turnaround for both Oscar and Lando, with George taking third for the main race. Schwags, we enjoyed some croissants this morning as we got up early to watch the race.
Ham and cheese croissants in honour of Miami's native dish, I guess. I don't know what that was about.
Sorry, native dish.
What? A French croissant?
A French croissant.
Maybe that's the wrong race. Anyway, hey, I didn't make the menu. I just ate it. It was very nice.
Can you fact check that, please?
No need.
Yeah, quick fact check that one. But no, it was a good race. It was good to watch. Good to watch the start, and good to see Oscar get by pretty quick and make up a few places early. Because I think everyone's like a bit concerned that he wasn't going to, well, not that he wasn't going to, but that he was starting at 4th and probably a bit of a, not maybe where he thought he was going to be after this quali and race, but they did well, got through, and Norris got pushed back a bit. But and Antonelli too sort of got shunted a bit, didn't he? But no, all in all, it was, I think a lot of the memes, it was a good race for the first, 25, 26 laps, and yeah, but no, it was good.
It was quiet enough at the end that we got to listen to some lovely radio banter with Lewis and his engineer. But
that was hilarious. I loved that.
Cracking race from McLaren. Like after that sprint race, I know it started wet, and the McLarens didn't win by that much, but they had a rocket ship today. And I thought Lando looked like he had pretty good pace, but Oscar just drove really cleanly. He didn't make mistakes. He When he made his overtakes, they were decisive, clean. There was no re-overtaking on him, whereas Lando struggled a bit with Max. So, yeah, Oscar's proving his value to that team in a big way.
You say he had a clean race, but I don't think we saw much of it because he was, again, out in front by himself, and he gets lacking of video coverage when that happens.
Well, yeah, I think Zach would have been happy enough though. But what was surprising, I'd love your opinion on this. It was, watching the first part of that race when everyone thought rain was coming in sort of 10, 15 laps. So it looked like the whole field were really pushing hard on tyre. Like everyone was really trying to get overtakes done if they thought they had speed. Oscar was right on. Kimi got a move done, was hassling Max for quite a few laps. So his tyres would have been hot. The car would have been hot. And then after he got past, I thought, okay, well, hopefully he can build a bit of a gap. But he just took off in the distance. He built like a 9-second gap in, 10 laps or something. It was ridiculous. Like they were just so much faster than the rest of the field. It was unbelievable performance from that car. So I think down to the hot weather, but I just thought McLaren was just, they looked like they were in a different league today. They really did.
I think it was the
in terms
water.
of the coverage, though, Dan, if you've got all the fighting that was going on for second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, there was overtakes happening. There was, cars chasing each other. You got one guy who's, let's be honest, 30 seconds ahead of everyone else, and everyone else is fighting for place and doing overtakes. That's where the camera's going to go. Like,
yeah,
they did come back to him for the last little bit. You saw him go around, but Hamilton was overtaking. They were fighting up against the Mercedes and things like that. So you go, well, I'd rather watch the overtakes than watch one guy out in front.
Alonso was getting taken out by rookies. It was awesome.
Not the only one. Yep.
Yes, Paul Lawson. Well, I think most of the rookies ended up with a car parked in the pits, didn't they? Except for Kimi.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Liam's aiming to have an altercation with every driver on the track at the moment. So,
tick.
He's got a checkboard and he's just marking them off as he goes through them.
He seems an angry little man at the moment, like just listening to his radio and some of the moves he's doing on track. Like, he's I don't know. Maybe he's not in the great way mentally at the moment. He's really trying to hold his spot, but prove himself, I think.
Yeah, pushing hard, but the whole thing is he's okay till about three quarters into the season, because as we were saying before, is Red Bull don't have any other drivers that are of age to come into it unless they go outside of the Red Bull paddock. So, from that perspective, he's got some time to be able to prove himself. But to your point, he just seems angry. He's up against everyone, including his own pit crew. So,
well, at least he doesn't discriminate, just angry at everyone.
But Huppy, you did mention about Ferrari, and I mean, I've got to say, I thought it was overtake of the race. We had the double overtake on Saints on lap 34. That was just beautiful in regards to the racing, with both Charles and Lewis taking Carlos through those three corners. Really smooth. That it could have gone a gutser. I thought it was some great racing. Sorry, Dan.
Lewis was only that far off getting Leclerc as well.
You push him wide, and then we'll both get past.
But then, of course, we saw, as I said, Ferrari being Ferrari, where essentially the swapping of the two drivers. So Hamilton sitting behind Leclerc, going, going to let me pass, and then going past Leclerc, and then having a number of laps to be able to try and do something, and then they're saying, no, we're going to swap it back. And Hamilton's getting on the radio going, look, that's not good teamwork, that's all I'm going to say. Then as he's asking for a response, my favourite comment was, have a tea break while you're at it, as they're talking. It was considering the driver swaps.
Yeah. Nah, so I like the Carlos Sainz one. Sainz is only 1.4 behind. And he goes, well, shall I let him pass me as well?
Get through too.
That was my favourite one from this morning.
Yeah, what an absolute failure of strategy decisions. Like, just unbelievable. Their pit wall could see. Lewis was out on softer tyres, so he was on the mediums. Leclerc was on the hards. Lewis was gaining at a rapid rate to the back of Leclerc, who wasn't gaining much ground on Kimi ahead. Surely the strategist would, at that point, think, look, we should look at swapping these guys soon to see if Lewis can get up there and get ahead of Kimi. If not, then swap back. Typical scenario, but just, it took them 2 laps to make a decision. They said, we'll get back to you, and then next lap, okay, we'll do something about it. And, by then you've wasted 3 laps and, opportunity's gone.
I mean, they've got all the data sitting on the pit wall, and Lewis is in the car just, obviously he can tell roughly where he is, and he's getting some feedback about his times and how close he is. But on the pit wall, they've got all the data going, in 3 laps, he's going to be here. Let's put him in front or whatever, or work it out. Like, they should be planning, like you said, 2-3 laps ahead of when it's going to happen. Not Hamilton going, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
Shouldn't even have to ask.
Didn't they come back and say that they hadn't even asked Leclerc if he wanted to give the position up? Like, he didn't even know that Lewis had requested.
There was some sort of miscommunication there. Yeah. I mean, it just baffles me. Like I watched a webinar on, I sent it to you, Blake, so I presumed you haven't watched it, but it was
You'd be correct.
It was from Catapult Systems, and they developed the data systems for the teams. And it was a fascinating thing. Bernie Collins did the webinar. There is so much information and data about drivers and the tyre degradation and lap times and, what's going to happen if so-and-so overtakes so-and-so. Like, and it's not just the pit wall. They've got engineers back at the factory all getting the live data, feeding information back about strategy options. Could they pit later? Could they pit earlier? Who will they come out behind? What's going to happen if it rains? Like, it must be just process failure at Ferrari, and ignoring that, someone on that pit wall, the chief strategist or engineer, could have just said, swap them. Let's just do it. Like, make the decision. Like, make it happen. Be decisive. Rather than, it just seems to be always the Ferrari drivers pushing the team to make strategy calls. It's not up to the drivers to make all the decisions on track,
Yep.
And to your point this is where, with Hamilton going out on mediums and Leclerc changing to hards, you don't want to waste laps. We're at the pinnacle of motorsport. You're burning rubber. And mind you, while these Pirellis are showing to be awesome compounds for this season, they're just holding up unbelievably, is you want to get out there with the fresh rubber to get the most out of the car and out of the drive.
Yeah, make the most of it.
Although watching those tyres, when Piastri came in at the end and he stopped and they had the camera on it, those tyres were those front tyres were cooked.
No, that's the rubber pickup. So when they come back in on that last lap, because the car's light, they want to make sure it meets a minimum weight.
Heavy as possible.
They will drive over all the marbles on the track, so they'll drive right off line and everything else, and all those rubber marbles stick to the tyre. So that's why it looks really lumpy and crappy when they come back in at the end. But I think the tyres were still in pretty good nick. They were doing good lap times at the end of that race. Like, that was the two-stopper was never in question. It was always going to be a single stop.
Yeah, well, you look at it.
Never radio chatter about, I'm burning tyres. I need to, help me out here, or I've got to conserve.
No, I think they were pushing reasonably hard, although I think Oscar was managing the back half of that race, even though Lando was catching him. Oscar had no reason to push his engine and tyres any harder than he really needed to.
It must be the water, the tyre water.
Well, they got 36, 37 laps out of those hards, didn't they?
Yeah, something like that. At least 30, yeah.
So the largest amount of laps done out of the hards was 36, and that was by Nico Hülkenberg. And so in regards to the mediums, it was 29 laps. So they're just getting amazing distance out of these tyres.
Yeah, which I think is ruining some racing. And look, Miami's usually not the best track for overtaking. And like as we pointed out, first half of the race was interesting enough. Second half was time to go make a coffee and settle in and listen to radio chat. That was about all that happened.
Well, there you go. You've just solved the Ferrari issue, Huppy. They've obviously gone off and made a cup of tea.
Yeah, maybe they were. Having a glass of wine.
So, look, in honour of the amazing performance by Kimi Antonelli, Mercedes are looking fantastic. I mean, if you look in regards to both handsome George is Mr. Consistent, but Kimi really put his foot down and showed what he's potentially capable of this weekend. So your thoughts on that, Lachy?
I also think he showed what that car can actually do, because, I mean, we've seen that it's had good, consistent race pace, but to take the pole out like he did, you're like, well, that's actually quick. And we haven't seen that from Mercedes. We've seen consistency. I mean, obviously, this morning they didn't get through it the way we would have liked them to. But, yeah, to have that speed, obviously they can't maintain that at the moment. But, if they can produce a car of similar ilk for next year with a little bit more consistency in it, he will be an absolute gun on the track if he can consistently keep driving. Like we said, George is Mr. Consistent, but he was 40 seconds off the pace at the end of it, so they could have done an entire pit stop and still come back out in front of him before he even got through. But as far as he's going and the car's going, I reckon they're the right track.
Yeah, against a couple of fast McLarens. Well, they're still second, aren't they, in the drivers? By a fair margin, but still.
Yeah, they got a good haul of points. I mean, Kimi has raw pace, like we saw in his qualifying. Like, he's a quick kid, obviously, but still has a bit to learn, I think, about managing tyres during the race. And he finished, 20 seconds behind George again. He went backwards in the race again, like he did in the sprint. But yeah, no doubt his ability. And let's hope the next few rounds will be at cooler tracks. I think Imola will be a bit cooler, so the field should come back together again, because I think on a 40-degree track, the McLaren is unstoppable at the moment. But yeah, Kimi did great, did really well.
And to see him also bounce back, I mean, from the sprint, getting youngest driver to ever get pole. And, we did see that he lost 3 positions in turn 1 where Oscar just took it to him straight away. And the other part of it being the contact between him and Verstappen. I mean, if we look at Red Bull and in the sprint, the unsafe release from the pits, which Kimi had to miss his tyre change, because obviously from that perspective, he clipped Max's front wing, had to continue out and go back onto the track, but then came back out and got P3 for the race. So it didn't phase him and it didn't really affect his performance.
And
there's no anger there.
Looking at Kimi, he's only 25% of the way through the season, so we've only had 6 rounds, and he's sitting in 6th in the championship, only 5 points behind Leclerc. Yep. So yeah, doing really well and contributing a lot of points to Mercedes. So yeah, definitely helping the team out.
Let's not forget that Lance Stroll is still in 10th position there with Ocon on 14 points. We all bagged Stroll at the start, but he's still ahead of Tsunoda, Gasly, Sainz, Hulkenberg. Like,
and he set a new record this weekend, didn't he? Another new record.
Yep.
Well, yes. Yep.
He's building.
He did politely point out he's never had the best car in the world. Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, all right. So from that perspective, going to the start of the race, turn 1, we saw that we had Max and Lando in first and second. And again, we're seeing a lot of first turn incidents. We saw a competition for the first corner. We saw Lando actually drop back 3 places. Schwags, your thoughts on Max going into corners and obviously the challenges for him going into those corners?
Everyone was talking about how much fatherhood was going to affect him and make him a softer driver, but there's no chance there. He's still he knows how to race. He knows how to get to the corner as quick as he can and be in the right spot to maybe push his way through, but make his way through. The last 2, if not 3 races have been really, the first corner's always been interesting. You're looking at, I hate to go back to Oscar again, but he's just got good starts. And I think, again, he had a good start. It just shows that that's really important to get that good reaction time off the line. Give yourself the best chance. Race to that first corner.
100%. And it's more important in Formula One than any other form of motorsport. Like, you often hear the phrase, you don't win the race on the first corner, but I think in Formula One, you can. So, it's hard to overtake sometimes. So, people can be very aggressive at turn 1. And like Lando, the gap opened up. He cut back on, Max on the inside. He had a good run up towards turn 2. So it looked like he genuinely had a chance to get in front. So he had to go for it. Otherwise, a car behind him would have gone for a gap next to him. So everyone's in that position where you attack or be attacked. And unlucky. It looks like Max got tiny bit of wiggle as he went through the corner a little bit sideways, which ran him a bit wide. It didn't look like he meant to run Lando off the track. But yeah, it's just turn 1.
I didn't think Verstappen did anything wrong in that first corner. I thought that was actually just racing. And, even I think Zach said, at the end of the day, we had a crack at it.
Yeah.
Pull back. But
no penalty.
I don't think Verstappen was in the wrong there at all.
No. And look, and as the commentators were saying after the race too, like at that point, McLaren, no one knew how fast that car was going to be on that dry track during the race, So everyone's close in practice because they're doing short runs and whatever, and it was wet in the sprint race. If Lando had have known, maybe he might have been held back a little bit and not put himself at risk, knowing that he could just overtake later in the race and win by 30 seconds. But no one knew at that point how fast that car was going to be.
Is that product of it being a sprint race and not having the extra practice sessions to figure it out?
Yeah, partly, but it was also the weather. It's a shorter race. So, that can bring cars back together, especially on a wet track. That sort of evens out the field a lot. And the track is a bit cooler when that happens too. But in open air on a dry track with dry tyres, it's a bit of a different story.
And the weather did play a massive part in it. To your point earlier on, Huppy, is that the teams were pushing as hard as they could because they thought rain was coming. So I think they were predicting some rain touching the edge of the track. I think it was turn 7. They were talking about probably about lap 15, lap 20. So they were pushing to get the absolute most out of the tyres that they could in case they had to go to intermediates. Obviously, that didn't happen, and so we saw those mediums continue to perform. But yeah, that's where you're seeing that pushing to be able to potentially take advantage of the weather.
Yeah,
It was interesting watching because they kept turning to the weather radar, and as they were watching it, you could actually see it was dissipating significantly as it was heading towards the track. And as you're watching it, you go, I don't reckon there's even going to get rain. And I reckon they got, 5 or 6 specks came on, and that was about it. There was no actual downpour at all as such. So.
And they seemed pretty confident at the start that there was going to be a heavy downpour. I think Ferrari said that it was going to be heavy. So, yeah, I guess they wanted to hang on with those initial set of tyres until rain came. But they would have seen the degradation of the tyres during practice and at the start of the race, and teams would have quickly realised that the deg wasn't very high and they were going to be able to push fairly hard. So, yeah, it was good. I'd much rather see cars pushing hard and going for overtakes than settling back 2 seconds behind the car in front to conserve tyres for the next half an hour. Like it was good action at the start.
Yep, you want good racing.
Yep, exactly.
So with that, any other points that anyone wanted to jump into before we went and looked at our predictions?
I would just like to ask, is it have you got washed at your house, or have you jumped ship and changed teams now, Christian? Because I'm not sure whether I'm the only one who's noticed, but you are certainly wearing the wrong top, or is it just me? Like, I just want to.
Yeah, no. Oh, look, I
mentioned it earlier when we first got here.
What's going on? My apologies.
For anyone listening, Christian is usually wearing a McLaren shirt, like I am, proudly for Oscar Piastri, but now he has Mercedes top on for some reason.
I decided to put it on in honour of Kimi's performance this weekend. I had bought this to do
He went backwards. What are you talking about?
Oh, no. He showed what he's capable of. I mean, once he gets that racecraft underway, I reckon everyone is touting him to be the next Lewis Hamilton, the next Max Verstappen. Again, this is, for this race, the only rookie who finished the race. And, for the youngest pole sitter in the history of F1, he again got P3 for the second race. So I bought this on a whim ages ago, and so I just thought, oh, well, what the hell? I may as well get one wear out of it.
So just to clarify for our listeners, if he has an excellent season next year, you're jumping ship and dumping Piastri and jumping on board the Mercedes train. Is that correct?
No, I'm Piastri all the way through and a proud supporter of McLaren.
Okay, just checking.
So I was surprised.
We've got some orange.
Yeah.
We've got some orange dye we can fix that with anyway.
So Oscar's won his 3rd Grand Prix in a row, and it's the first time in 50 years an Australian's done it. And you've turned up to the podcast in a Mercedes shirt.
Good on Kimi.
Just a lack of commitment, I think. Yep, lack of commitment.
Anyway,
just saying.
So with that, look, we'll jump into our predictions. So as we're saying, for Miami, we had pole being Max Verstappen, which none of us picked. So no points for that. Oscar finishing in first place, and surprisingly, we all picked Oscar to finish in first place. So we all got 3 points for that. Then in second was Lando, who the only person to pick that was Huppy. So Huppy picking up an extra couple of points. And then George finishing in third place, and none of us picked George for third place either. So, Dan, you and I both had George, and Lachlan, you had George for second. So had we had 32 seconds up our sleeve.
That was optimistic, yes.
I think the most disappointing part about that whole thing is it means that Huppy's jumped in front of me in the overall leaderboard.
Yes, and the world is back to normal. Thank you.
Mind you, don't forget, I'm not going to get upset Huppy with his predictions for the end of the season. So, so that puts Huppy with 20 points in the lead, closely followed by Lachy with 19, myself sitting at 16, and Schwags moving up to 9 points. So you're almost halfway there. Yeah, excellent. So look, that's the wrap up of the Miami Grand Prix. As I said at the start, which we're going to have to endure until 2041. we will have our next episode where we're going to do a little bit of a review of the Cadillac update so far and also Audi, as it is a non-race weekend, as we have to wait a weekend for Imola the following weekend. So be sure to like and subscribe for the podcast so you see our next episodes as they drop, and we'll see you on the next lap. And that's the checkered flag for this episode of The Downshift. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us in the paddock. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a lap. And hey, if we've earned it, drop us a 5-star review. It really helps us climb the grid and reach more motorsport fans. Tune in next time as we keep pushing flat out to bring you fresh, current, and entertaining content. Until next time, keep it fast, keep it fun, and we'll catch you on the next lap.